How do you pronounce this name before we get it wrong? Because I know we're going to go back and forth and probably mix it up.
So, if we go with the French pronunciation, we're going to go Jeanne. Now,
Jean.
I loaded the game in Korean. It also agrees at Jeanne. And although I'm half tempted to just go Jenny, but Jean or Jeanne, or just Jean, French pronunciation, easy way to go with it.
Yeah.
A few moments later.
The topic prior, we also talked about counters to Jean, and that segues into this for Jean. There we go. I did
Jean,
it too.
we're failing. We're failing. What's going on, everybody? This is Childish. We're back at it again with the next episode of Educate and Dominate, the one-on-one interview series where we take some of the top names in the game and get their insights so we can bring your game to the next level. Now, we just got back from the SWC World Finals and we have so much to talk about, but if you guys did not know, we've met a lot of people along the way, and for the first time around, we're going to have a representative from one of the top guilds out there on the global server, SaySwag again. We got ourselves Hua in the house. How's it going, my man?
Very good, Childish. Thanks for the invitation this morning. This should be fun.
This is going to be very fun. For those that don't know, Hua is the theory crafter of theory crafters. We've had a lot of great conversations talking about a variety of things in the game. And so I basically had to beg him to come on this channel so we can get some content out for you guys. And we're going to have a lot of stuff coming out in the next couple of weeks. Now, in this first video, we're going to be talking about Jeanne, probably one of the more popular units that we saw at the SWC throughout the content, throughout the actual tournament. And I feel like since it is a free-to-play option for some of the people out there, and given the fact of how strong it is, I think it's going to be pretty excited to talk about, because if you guys haven't built it, I believe after we talk with Hua, you're going to be definitely building it. However, before we get into the topic at hand, obviously, Hua, you were there, you experienced the finals throughout the way. Just tell me a little bit about your experience there. How much, you've obviously been there beforehand. Tell us a little bit about it.
So SWC this year was great. Come to us put on a really fun event. Most people in the community don't really know me that well. Prior to SWC, I kind of stay quiet, work a lot, and don't get a lot of time. But the opportunity to come out to SWC to meet you guys, to meet Island Grown, to meet the rest of the players is amazing. And I think Come to Us has a pretty good recipe for events on their hands right now. And I'm looking forward to kind of seeing how they continue to develop it. But more than that, it's a showcase for new and upcoming units that maybe the G3 RTA players have been using but haven't really trickled down to the lower ranks. And I'm pretty excited about the topics today.
Yeah, I was going to say the event without question, and I said this in my last video, is they basically hosted the best event ever. That collaboration with OGN, the esports team, was really exciting. I never thought that in a million years I would see a Summoners War event of that magnitude, and so I was definitely really happy with the at the end result there, and I hope that they continue to work with OGN down the road for 2019. So it should be pretty interesting. But let's get into the topic at hand. Jeanne Spotlight. Now this is funny because we were talking about this, guys, before we even recorded the video. How do you pronounce this name before we get it wrong? Because I know we're going to go back and forth and probably mix it up. Dr. Google, aka Hua, tell us how we pronounce this name.
So if we go with the French pronunciation, we're going to go Jeanne.
Jeanne.
Now, I loaded the game in Korean. It also agrees at Jeanne. And although I'm half tempted to just go Jenny, but Jean or Jeanne, or just Jean, French pronunciation, easy way to go with it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. I went back and forth, and I've seen other YouTubers call it out differently. I'm like, oh, it's whatever. We all know what we're talking about. We don't even need the name. We're just gonna go with it. So, Jeanne, obviously, guys, this is the latest free-to-play unit that you can get in the Fusion Hexagon, the Natural 5-star Delight Paladin. So, tell us a little about this. While this is something that we saw quite a bit. Describe her kit for us in a nutshell, and why do you feel she works so good in the RTA?
Okay, so what we have with Jeanne is we have a free-to-play CC unit that doesn't really CC, but she really brings a really robust kit to the table. Her base stats are good. She's light element, so she's not going to glance. And the provoke, if you look at it, it's 2 turns on a 4-turn cooldown. So you think, okay, that's 50% of the time she can mess with the way that your other team attacks. Except that she grants a turn on her S3 when she uses it. So that brings it down to 3 turns. And then she uses that extra turn to shield herself. So what you have is you provoke the whole team. If she doesn't get an additional violence, she's protected through all the incoming attacks. And she's a pretty simple monster to build as far as the stats required, although the runes are going to vary based on the level you play at. But you add that on top, but then you say her S1 stuns with the normal paladin S1 stun rate, Oh, and did we mention that she heals every time she attacks 10%?
Right.
So she's like, oh, by the way, did you want Iris? Because we've got Iris. Did you want a stun machine? Because we have that. Oh, would you like to actually do a soft CC on the entire opponent? So I don't know if you have a unit like Diana, for example, or maybe you happen to get a ragdoll. And people
Yeah.
people want to control who they hit in that circumstance. Well, Jeanne lets you control who you're hitting, and that redirection that the paladins, both the fire and the light, have are incredibly powerful. And if you can counter that or pair that up with another unit with a passive like Diana, you can really make some messy situations for the opponent.
Yeah, Diana was one of those units that definitely turned it up a notch when it comes to some of the competition that we got a chance to see here. Now, one of the things that you actually talked about, depending on the person's monster box, is the build. It can definitely range depending on where you're at in the game. For your level, what would you feel for a top end player out there? What is going to be the best way to build her?
So let's say you have the runes you want, and
Right.
you can build her in any way you want, and you're giving her the best runes you have available. The problem with the CC comps usually ends up being damage. So you want to build her as tanky as you want, but you want to have her able to scale near the end of the match. So she needs some crit rate, but the base stats that you're looking for if you're an earlier player, speed, HP defense, and then if you follow the same line of thinking that the Wind Panda has, where her weakness is if she gets shut down, well, then you want to build high resist.
High
So
resist.
moderate accuracy, high resist.
Gotcha. And so moderate accuracy, give us like a range. We think at 40, 45. I mean, because here's my thought process on this one. You make an argument for moderate accuracy, yet you understand the importance of resistance as an endgame player. So it's like, how much is enough when you're going up against G3 players like yourself?
So I have an interesting thought on this. If it's a unit that its entire purpose is accuracy based, like Hathor, then that 85 accuracy line really right at the cap, so you're pushing the accuracy res mechanic is really important. But Hathor, when Hathor works correctly, you don't get hit. So Hathor can afford to invest everything into accuracy. Now, if you take Jeanne and you give her like 40 accuracy, and then you run like an Okeanos or a Ganymede or a Wusa with her,
Right.
well, then you can save those stats for something else, and then you can use the accuracy lead.
Gotcha.
And so I would go minimum of 45 accuracy or 44 accuracy, so that 41 lead brings her up to cap. But you're really looking, I'd say, no less than that 40-ish level.
Gotcha. And then with regards to, you talked about some of the stats that you're looking to get on that. When it comes to runes, I would imagine, given the innate kind of violent mechanic, it'd be nice to have a violence to pair with it, so just so that you could cycle through your skills even that much more. But the subset on that, given the fact that the first skill can counterattack here, would you just say the optimal way to go is Revenge Set, or would you consider some other one?
So I'm playing around with Violent Revenge right now. That does leave you open to first turn getting killed. However, that's going to really depend on how your account is built up. A triple revenge or a violent revenge, I think, is the best long-term strategy for that unit. However, that doesn't preclude Despair Revenge if you have an overlapping CC mechanic, so you don't need the violent procs, or the triple revenge mechanic, just so that every time she hits, she's hitting back and stunning. If you do it that way and you are able to control the opponent's immunity situation, well, you can really deny quite a few turns that way.
Gotcha. And you also talked a little bit about some of the units that she pairs well with. Let's flip it around here. Like, what are some of the things that, if somebody were to lock down that Jeanne, what are some of the things that you're looking to incorporate in your composition in order to counter that specific unit?
So you want to kind of look and see what makes Jeanne painful. So if they're running a Jeanne-based comp, and we look at like Beat D's comp, for example.
Right.
Beat D did not run immunity when he ran Jeanne. So the way that you can kind of handle the Jeanne comp is if you can kind of counter CC, and if you can get that first turn off and you can lock them down, you are vulnerable at that point to a violent proc, and then you have to deal with whatever the repercussions are for that. But like a traditional Gani Hathor actually locks that down. So if you see somebody go Jeanne early, well, then Gani Hathor can help. Now, Veramos is another possibility. I'm on the fence on that. I think we're going to talk about that a little bit. But I also like Iris. So Iris has the ability that if she does what she's intended to do, which is attack every turn, Jeanne does not stop her from doing that. So she can continue to just attack. Chilling also works very well. So what you see with both Chilling and with Iris is you see the ability to strip that invulnerability buff that she puts on herself. So she's still provoking you. You're still doing exactly what she wants, but she's less happy with the situation because she's getting stripped. Iris also on the traditional like Despair Revenge build can continue to stun the rest of the team and strip them and heal your team and every like she loses no functionality lost by being provoked. The only thing you really lose is the inability to use S2 where you want it.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're stunning, there's a good chance that their provoke engine, where they continue to be able to just run the provoke trade on you, that does not get to continue unlimited times, and then you can kind of take the game back at that point.
Gotcha. And so here's the funny thing about it. I know you're going to laugh at this one because we basically said one of the hard counters is Iris. But of course, 0.2% of the people out there have Iris. Is there an option you think for, I wouldn't say free to play, but a little bit more obtainable unit out there that could possibly counter if people are looking to deal with it?
So honestly, try chilling. I would suggest people attempt chilling. So chilling does a couple things for this situation here. Chilling is going to apply a slow debuff, and chilling is going to strip away that immunity or the invulnerability. So if you can have those things occur and your monsters are S1 hitting, and let's say one of them happens to be a panda, I hear that's popular in RTA, you should be able to defense break and kill the paladin by doing exactly what the paladin's forcing you to do. So you're working kind of in parallel with the paladin skill set, even though it's the opponent's monster.
Some of the things that we see when it comes to RTA is the underuse or overuse of certain units, and obviously Jeanne is not one you can. I wouldn't say it could be a big mistake here, but you definitely see some people they watch a content or they watch a what do they call it? They watch the championships go and they're like, oh my god, I got to build Jeanne right away. But obviously, Jeanne is one of those units that mesh well with other units. So given the fact that you actually have been playing this game quite some time and you actually do stream, have helped a lot of people out there. Tell me some of the common mistakes that you have seen from other players that talked about Jeanne. I said Jeanne, right? I did it again. Oh my god, fail. Jeanne, tell me about some of the common mistakes that either you see at your level or just with other people talking to you, asking questions about Jeanne.
So the pick ban phase is where she is going to be decided on whether or not she's going to be effective, and she's not an early pick.
Right.
So a hard counter to her, and I know everyone's going to say, well, duh, is if you bring double immunity, what is she going to do to you?
Right.
So if you pick her, if a player picks her too early in the match, then that's going to be a problem. Or if you pick units that don't necessarily synergize well with her. So, I mean, Molong being a popular pick, she has the ability to give him the invulnerability for the Reckless Assault. People might make a mistake where they just think that she's a good unit on her own, which she's not necessarily. So if you don't look at the opponent's box in a vacuum, that will help you with you picking her. And I would suggest that you pick her maybe that third round or the fourth round of picks, depending.
Yeah, I was actually watching a couple of gameplays earlier today, and I was quite shocked to see some of the teams that people were, season 7 just got started, and I was quite surprised to see how many people picked the weirdest comps ever. Like they picked, they did like Hathor first pick, and then they loaded up Okeanos and Molong, which essentially doesn't really make sense given the fact that you loaded up Hathor because Hathor's going to control with sleep, right? And you're bringing in 2 units to provide AoE. It doesn't really make sense. So just kind of getting back in line to what you're saying is the pick and ban phase, picking the units that synergize well with your party is definitely a very important topic here. So let's see. The next topic that I have is the free-to-play obtainable options for RTA. Now, obviously, it always makes it super exciting to talk about Jeanne in this instance because not only is this a really, really strong unit in the current meta, but it also is a unit that everybody can collect, right? So kind of getting in line with that, another popular unit that people incorporate on another team is, for example, Berkuni, a 3-star unit that definitely works well in the meta. Can you think of any other units out there, and it doesn't have to really relate to Jeanne, but any other, free-to-play options or relatively obtainable options that you don't see a lot of gameplay in that, and you would recommend to somebody out there to incorporate in their RTA team?
Okay, so yeah, I actually like this topic because not everybody is able or willing to mortgage their house or sell a kidney to play a video game. Right. And really, nor should they be. And kudos to the developers because when we were in Korea, we sat down and talked to them a bit, and they're really aiming at how do you engage or continue to make the game fun or competitive for a normal player, not somebody who is like Kardashian or someone like that with the extra money.
Right.
So the topic prior, we also talked about counters to Jeanne, and that segues into this. Or Jeanne, there we go. I did
Jeanne,
it too.
we're failing.
The Veramos actually kind of works as a soft counter to her provoke lockdown because he will cleanse that every time. There are some limitations to Veramos, but I would suggest if people are looking at Jeanne and wondering what the heck do I do with this unit, maybe pull your monster box out and relook at Veramos. If you can pair Veramos with a cleanser and make that cleanser a couple speeds slower than Jeanne. So, I mean, that cleanser can be Konamiya, it can be whomever, it doesn't matter. It can be Lisa from your raid team. The ability to lock down the provoke buff, which Vero still will do S1. He can't stun.
Right.
On that. He has to do what the provoke tells him, and then he cleanses. But if the ability to cleanse after that with one of the other members of your team that maybe you put like 1 or 2 speeds slower than Veramos, that's a good option. But for general free-to-play units, congratulations, Grant.
Thank you.
For general free-to-play units, I mean, really, you need to look at your box, and I suggest people work on a defense ignoring base comp. You can do your Lucian Cleave. You can do honestly, Bulldozer Coppers are really scary.
Right.
And the only thing that limits your success with those up to, and I'm gonna put the line at this at about midway through G2. Mm-hmm. So if the goal for somebody is to aim at G1 in RTA, they say, look, I farm all the time. I don't have the luck with the units or whatever. Honestly, put your best runes on an Emesity, an Emma, or not Emma, the Olivia, the wind one.
Olivia.
Bulldozer, Copper, and go to town with that with the Rakuni, a couple, 3 research units, 2 instant kill units, and just watch how that works. If you invest in the speed tuning and the time on those units, and the hardest one to get there is Olivia, but everyone else is either Fusion or Nat 3 and under. I mean, you're going to have a good time with that. Yep. And if all you want to do is just push RTA and use what you have, I would say that's the extreme free-to-play option. Right. There's also nothing wrong with Kali. There's nothing wrong with regular attack bar boosters. So, I mean, you don't need a Bastet. I mean, you can use Konamiya or Tion. And you see really this shift when we move to Special League for 20-star and under or 4-star RTA. Right. And that is the forum if somebody's wondering, how can I compete? I would look at 4-star RTA because there are some comps that absolutely work in regular RTA that people bring out of the closet that they really wreck face. And those birds are actually really solid units, both the light and the water one.
Yeah, I was actually surprised that this last Special League Arena was essentially the SWC mode. I was really hoping to see more 4-star or 20-star RTA. I really feel like we actually, one of the things that you touched about, after the event, we got a chance to meet with the head developers out there and talk about a couple of things that we're looking to do, possibly how they can, like you said, make the game more fun. And the team-based PvP format was super fun. I enjoyed it the most, actually. And I'm hoping that if they can't work that in for 2019, possibly consider a different mode that they can incorporate for the regular RTA just to see a little bit more diversity, because I feel like it was super fun to watch. And I mean, obviously, again, congratulations just for the Toy Annihilation that we saw there versus Barcode. I love Barcode. They're a really strong guild, but I'll tell you what, it's like, I don't even know what to say. I was just like, wow, they just killed him. They just killed him. It was crazy.
I mean, we definitely had some good lucky breaks fighting Barcode, but
right.
No. So we talked to the developers about specifically that tournament mode,
yeah.
With the guild versus guild or team versus team with the monster elimination picks. For those of you who didn't watch SWC 2018, for the small vignette or opening feature for the actual tournament, when we did this, if the first 2 matches any units picked can't be used in the following matches, so by your team. So which means if your complaint with RTA is it's always the same 10 units. Well, now it's always the same 20, but it's at least a wider range than the original 10 units that you're seeing. So the first person to use Gani Hathor, well, that comps out anymore.
Right.
And
right.
If you're able to bait your opponent into using their immunity picks, well, then your next teammate can bring Gani Hathor, and they can just have a great time having fun with that.
Right. I feel I'm definitely down for that strategy. I just got to pull a Gani Hathor real quick, and I'm ready to go. Right, I'm ready to go.
Or you pull a teammate with a Gani Hathor.
That's good. That's good. I'm gonna have to look for some teammates.
And so that's the thing with this format. Like all 3 of us who went there had different light and dark net 5s and different play styles, and that was one of the things we looked at. So we spent a lot of time sitting down. And how do we? And this is a little nerdy, but how do you Venn diagram your monster box and find out where your unique strengths are, so that you can play to that, so that you don't have to overlap. And another way you can do that same format, you can run a cleave comp as 3rd or 2nd match, and that doesn't use any of the normal meta units.
Yep. And that's kind of one thing to point out there. I really liked it. I saw it a lot in the America's Cup. You guys after every single match that was done, you guys all connected, and not even just connected within your guild, but even talked to some of the players in other guilds, being able to talk about just some of the mistakes that were made or possible choices you could do. Oh, hey, we got a new time. You made a couple of. You guys had a lot of feedback going out, and that's really cool to see. Even though you guys were at the top end of the game and you understand this really, really well, you still have that open-minded thought process so that you can always learn from your mistakes and kind of push forward and make sure you get that W. And obviously, it carried you on over to finals, and there and then we got the win. We got to take that belt. We got to take that championship belt. So
Yeah, I mean, unless you're beat D, one person's not smart enough to think of everything. So I mean, you really adding a teamwork element where you can rely on your friends and rely on your guildmates is something that Summoners War hasn't really had. Like, we play this mobile game where we're geographically separated. I mean, we have to use third-party programs like we're doing today in order to connect. But if you have the opportunity to do that, the game becomes a lot more fun.
Gotcha. Speaking about fun and speaking about things that we could change here, I know we talked about a lot of team-based PvP there. Let's put it out on the floor there. Outside of the RTA stuff, if you could name off one or two things that you're just like, man, this game would be super epic if it was to change this way. Like, what would you like if you could change some of this war in some kind of way for variety? What would it be and why?
Okay, and I'm just going to put this out there, and this is a little controversial,
Okay.
but I would like to see. There's two barriers to entry to tournament play right now, and the two barriers to entry are runes and monsters. Now, yeah, everyone says, yeah, wow, that's pretty obvious, but if you remove one of those barriers to entry, all of a sudden, the tournament isn't about swiping your visa, it's about skill. Yep. And so what I'd like to see, now Summoners War model, and let's be real here, it's a game and it's based on making money, and they don't just sell skins, they sell dungeon runs and they sell summons. But ideally, you'd remove both barriers to entry, so going into a tournament format, you'd have a set of runes with stat allocations, and you'd have a full monster box. That would be amazing to see. Mm-hmm. Not everybody has a full monster box, or they're handicapped. I heard even with someone in this chat's missing Ganny Hathor. The ability to plug, even if, let's say, you were to grab 2 or 3 monsters and say, these are my borrowed monsters for the season, and they don't give you a rune box, but they say, use your existing runes. Here's 2 monsters that you can use for tournament play. That right there, you would see a lot of new faces and new names for people who just didn't get lucky enough to pull the right units, and it's about luck a lot of the times. Unfortunately, you can't skill your way into an Nat 5 unless by skill you mean getting a really high paying job and swiping a credit card.
That's a lot of skill. You didn't know? Yeah, I swipe right all the time, right there. Gotta swipe it hard. All right. So getting back to the next topic, you were talking about the monsters and the quality, and one of the things that we don't see quite a bit in the upper echelon of the players is the sharing of information that comes to the monster bucks, right? No one wants to give out that information because they don't want their opponents to know exactly where they're at with speeds, their tuning and whatnot. It can give a lot of valuable information away. However, you are not the norm. One of the things that you actually do that most people don't know about is you actually share your information on Swarfarm. So tell us a little bit about that.
Okay, so for those of you who aren't aware, swarfarm.com is a free hosted website where you can upload your Summoners War profile. That's embarrassing.
Yeah, that's very embarrassing. My fault. Amarna didn't heal. He just messed up.
To the gulag, Amarna. So if you can update your stuff, it's a good resource to share. You can make teams on there. You can upload all your stats, your rune bases there, and it uploads when you want to upload it. So I generally once a week will upload my current monster box to Swarfarm. That profile is kept public. You have the option to lock it. You have the option to not. But for those of you who don't use it, it also is a wealth of knowledge about the game for drop rates, summon rates, and everything else. I mean, Summoners War, until recently when they added the summoning rates patch for the gambling laws where they had to tell us what they were, Swarfarm is where you went to go see what actually the rates were, because they aggregated hundreds of thousands or millions of data points. But on the same thing, they do the same thing for giants, dragons, raid, whatever. If you are one of the people who says, oh, I can never get violent grinds and I raid all the time. Well, the reality of it is your violent grinds drop just as much as everything else. It's just you have a lot more runes that need them. Sure. So confirmation biases, you can do that. But Swarfarm is a good public data site for that. And if anyone who wants to go look at my monster box at any time, I leave that open in public. And I think Childish has that available, but it's Hwasong0181, capital H, capitalization matters. And yeah, feel free to check it out, guys. There's nothing I really want to hide. Now, pre-tournament, I might not update as often. Like for the last tournament, I did not update the week prior, and I made some changes. My Bistek got a little bit faster, and a couple of runs shifted around. Yeah. But there's no reason why we as a community can't look and see what everyone's got. and I don't think the lack of knowledge really helps the community grow as a whole. Now, were I going to go back into singles competition, and maybe next year I might lock that down for like the month prior while I make my main changes.
Sure.
But for general use guys, yeah, feel free. Anyone who wants to go in and dig around and see what I have or don't have, it's there.
Gotcha. Awesome. And again, if you guys didn't get a chance to check out earlier, we were talking about he not only does he provide that, he's also a Twitch streamer out there for the Summoners War community. So if you guys want to go ahead and check him out, that's going to be twitch.tv/SW_Hua. I'll leave the link in the description in addition to the swap form, so you can go ahead and check that out and give him some support. My man, Hua, thank you so much for providing all this content. Is there anything you want to leave for your fellow audience, your fans and whatnot, getting back from this tournament?
Honestly, this game, there's a lot of discussion about lifeline of the game, or length of life. Longevity, there's a hard word we're looking for. I think Summoners War got a lot of legs left. If you have friends who are interested in playing the game, the traditional take on that has been because their permanent accounts don't have new players come in. But the developers, after talking with them this last week, they're really focused on how do we grow our base, how do we grow our community, how do we grow our subscribers. So I think the game is only going to get better for new players.
Mm-hmm.
And while it may be hard to reach pinnacle of RTA because we've got 3-4 years of play behind us, anyone who's on the fence about whether or not they want to play this game, or anyone who has a friend, don't feel guilty if you get them into it. I mean, unless they start mortgaging their house. But the game is still, I think it's got a lot of legs left in it, and I encourage anyone who's curious about it to jump in and try it.
Yeah, definitely. I basically echo that statement. Speaking about the summon aspect, there was no summons like left on hold. I probably saw about a few $1,000s worth of summons go between not just the players, but also some Comptos employees there. Everyone did not hold back. They just had a blast. It was a crazy weekend.
I mean, the game producers are sitting there going, yeah, I spent about a third of my paycheck on Summoners War.
Yeah.
And he's just sitting there right with us, and we give each other the guilty look, and we buy a light dark pack, and we summon over dinner again. I mean,
yeah. I think every night we definitely hit some summons. There was no night left without summons for sure. It was crazy. But either way, guys, that is going to be it. Thank you all so much for tuning in. This is just one of many videos we're going to be putting out for the following week. This video should be dropping, I believe, Monday in the morning. I'm going to say right around probably 6 a.m. Central Standard Time. So the goal is to try to get the Educate Dominate back on track and try to get it into a weekly format. Hua's going to help us out doing some pre-recording of the videos leading up to that. But stay tuned. If you guys enjoy this, do me a favor, give it a thumbs up, and I will see you guys all in the next one. Take care.